Bookcase TV is brought to you in part by Cafe Tallulah, Digital Film Academy,
I often wonder what it means to be courageous. Is riding on top of the roof of a speeding car being courageous? I'm not sure. Is swimming across the Hudson when it's frozen in winter? I'm not sure either. Only because I believe that to be courageous, one has to be faced with true moral conflict and danger. Only then a true character or true nature reveals itself, and we are able to sound our level of courage. Today we're going to meet two of these people who have plenty of time and experience to measure their level of courage. The first one by crossing impossible buildings around the world and making his name for it, notably the World Trade Center. And the other one from bringing news from the war, the most dangerous conflict in the world, like the war in Afghanistan, where he was experiencing the war right on the forefront in the trenches with a soldier. For this, we send our favorite journalist to interview them. And you're actually my first French guest. We've never had one before. So welcome to Bookcase TV. And I'm talking today to Philippe Petit, this new book, Why Not? Which is with a K, obviously, for the pun words. I was very intrigued because I thought your approach to life and knots was unique. And you are planning to write a substantial, from what you said, from what I read, the history of knots.
First, I wanted to make a very alive, intriguing, personal, opinionated book because there are 300 books of notes, or 500, and a kind of most of them full of mistakes and boring. So I thought, who needs one more book of notes? But this one is, first, when you look at the cover, you see the little red rope that is being offered to the reader. You know, you peel it off, and then you can start jumping in right there. And I choose some notes that are unusual and funny and beautiful and life-saving. So it's a very unusual book of notes that can help anybody in any profession. Each chapter of the book starts with a double-page picture of a big walk on a highway of mine. And within the picture, there is a little frame with a true story of the knot that saved my life that day or saved the day that day. And that way, really, I invite the reader to go into a self-taught master rigger and wire walker, which is who I am. And it's a book full of history and anecdotes and quiz and magic tricks. So it's for all ages and for all way of life.
So how do you decide which knot to use when you go to, say, you tell a situation or location?
There are a few families of knots that exist. For example, to attach a knot to something, it's called a hitch. To attach a knot, to attach a rope to another rope, to make the rope longer, for example, is called a bend.
All the places you talk about, each chapter on the book, it seems like there's always an exclamation mark when you say, like, but it was illegal what I did, and you seem to get a great kick out of that.
Well, yeah, I love artistic bank robbery when you don't steal anything, but you offer something beautiful. And yes, of course, there is less and less room today for illegal wire walker, but I still have that in my head.
And you're talking about inspiration, how you inspire people. People tell you. Do you think especially now in this computer age, like you don't wear a watch, you don't have a computer, you don't have a TV. Do you think there's a lot of complacencies with people and they live by proxy? Like they watch TV and they feel high about the film or the story. Do you think with you, when you take not so much risk, but you actually put your life on the line, basically, and you do something artistic, do you think people live the dreams for you?
Yes, I think in those moments when you see something raw, honest, true, human, and a little bit beyond the human, I think you pull people out of their lethargy or what's happening in the 21st century. Most people are nailed to little pixels and too many images and false communications, and you have 2,000 friends, but actually you have no friends. So I think you pull people out of that and give them back their senses, to hear, to smell, to touch, to look. That's what happens usually, and it's almost a childlike moment, not a childish moment, but it's, yeah, exactly. It's to put it back to your childhood when you know, when everything was a marvel, you know, touch a flower that you've never smelled before. And of course, we have lost that.
So I see a big ropes. What was that
Oh,
for?
well, this is because in in my book, one of those unusual families I created was the knots that are not knots. In the Middle Ages, if you hold this rope, now you give me a rope to hang my laundry, right? So in the Middle Ages, they didn't have those simple or complicated laundry pin, but this is a twisted rope. So if you untwist it a little bit, you're able to pass one part of your whatever things to dry, and then here you untwist, because you see there are strands here, and now you have hung your laundry, which by the way is a better way to dry your laundry, using nature and the smell and nature. And then you don't have to get on a little stool and start collecting all those pins and putting them. No, you just pull out and go home.
That's it.
This is something I show in my workshop of rigging. Please hold this a little bit high. And now let's imagine the situation for me is to save my life or save somebody or save the day, right? I am holding something and pull a bit. I'm holding something that is about to fall and break, or how can a human being can hold on a shoestring, on a fishing line? You're going to burn your fingers. You'll not be able to hold 200 pounds. So there is a knot that was specially created, and it is the marlin spike. So you have the little black conic steel tool that people go through the ropes to be able to do a splice. But in a situation of emergency, the handle of a toothbrush, a rusty nail you find on the ground, a pen will do the thing. And it is a knot in which you cleverly go around the rope in half a second, and now you can hold. You can water ski, you know. Okay, and and you can also do it with only one hand if you practice yourself. So I love this type of saving your life, you know. And then of course, like many knots, it dissolves in thin air. So that is in my book under the chapter of lifesavers, you know.
So before you do a big climb, what sort of mental preparation do you do? Do you visualize? You withdraw? I mean, first I read you go inspect all the knots, the cavalities.
It is true that before to do a high wire walk, sometimes I have to climb to the roof of a building or the top of a mountain.
So but you're there, what you do?
My walks between places involve a lot of knots. First, the anchor points, which is mainly cable to anchor points. And then once the walking cable is across and well tied, still I need to minimize the vibration. So I put little rope. Actually, let me show you. If this is the cable, right? I put a simple rope like this, and it is the clovage. And this, the more you pull, the more it's actually like a giant hand. You see, it holds the cable, and it reduces the vibration. So if I do that every 60 feet on a long walk, it will permit me to walk across. So that's, for example, a very classic knot for a wire walker.
Man on the wire. How did that happen, that relationship with James?
Actually happened because I said no for many years. And then the secret relationship trigger was the word collaboration. I wanted to collaborate. I mean, again, it's the same with the book. It's the same with anything with me. It's not just the result, it is the path also, you see. And so collaborating on a film was very important, and it did happen to a certain degree. And at some point, movie makers said, we cannot have two sculptors sculpting the same thing. But anyway, it's his film, but I am glad that film all over the world inspire people.
Do you want to see how good it would be on the wire? Okay. That would be me on the wire. Yeah, I can move my arm. I can go right and left. I can go up and down on my knees, see? I have tremendous balance. See that? My guest today is Sebastian Junger, who had a book wrote a couple of years ago called War. But today he's going to be talking about the book, and he's probably let us in. It's a new project, or the most recent one, like the documentary you did about your pal that fell in Libya, Tim Hetherington. What was motivation to go away for a year and to put people in direct line of combat through your documentary and book?
Well, I'd been covering wars since the early 90s, from Bosnia on. And I never thought I'd see, I grew up after Vietnam, during Vietnam, I never thought I would see U.S. forces in major combat in my lifetime. Certainly not in Afghanistan, a country I started going to in the mid-90s. And as the war dragged on, an easy war and one that was quite welcomed by the Afghans. They were sick of the Taliban, and they were actually very appreciative that the U.S. forces came in and pushed the Taliban out. But so many mistakes were made by the Bush administration that the war dragged on. And by 2005, I thought I should know what it's like to be an American soldier in combat. It's the only experience in war I hadn't really had was with a regular army.
When you talk about mistakes, talk about logistic mistakes or decision.
They didn't invade.
They did not take it seriously.
They didn't take it seriously. Okay. They were focused on Iraq. The Afghans. I mean, I was getting hugged in the street in Kabul because I was American after the Taliban.
After the Taliban, yeah.
And the Afghans couldn't believe that the Bush administration only left 15,000 soldiers in Afghanistan and went on to Iraq. They couldn't believe it, and it was an absolute complete victory for the Northern Alliance, for U.S. forces, frankly, for the Afghan people. And then we walked away. And that was the big mistake. So by 2005, I decided I should be embedded with U.S. forces because we were really in a real war now. And in 2007, I thought, I'm going to follow one platoon for a year in combat, not to report on the war, on the wider war, but to report on the experience of being a soldier, an American soldier in combat in Afghanistan. And that's where, so I wanted to make a documentary called Restrepo, and I wanted to write a book, which was called War.
And Restrepo came from this Spanish-American soldier, a medic who got killed, right?
Yeah, Juan Sebastian Restrepo was the platoon medic. He was killed in July of 2007. They named a combat outpost after him, and my movie is named after that outpost after him.
But so why 1 year? Do you think 1 year is long enough?
Well, the year was, I wanted to cover one deployment. And so I was there off and on for 15 months, and so was my colleague, Tim Hetherington.
What was your personal experience? What sort of transformation did you go through?
Yeah, I mean, I'd been in a lot of wars before, so it wasn't my first war, but it was my first time bonding with a small group of soldiers. I'd never been with a professional army. And the guys the American soldiers that I was with were incredibly professional. I mean, they really were just like unbelievably well-trained and disciplined. I really liked it out there. And what I liked was being part of a small group. Okay. I'd never had that experience, and it was a very, very profound and powerful one.
You're a journalist, you're not a soldier. I know you've covered, like you said, Bosnia conflict until then. Were you pretty much like a cherry when you arrived there?
You know, I'd seen more combat than a lot of the platoon had.
Okay. Oh, really?
Well, yeah, because I've been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah, but does that mean covering it? Doesn't mean to be in the line of duty.
Well, I wasn't a soldier, but I was in combat. Like I'd been shot at more than probably most of the platoon had before that year. So I mean, they didn't realize that at first, but yeah, it wasn't new to me. Yeah.
Did you feel sometimes like for the sake of catching a brilliant angle, you were taking a risk of the camera, or were you pretty much trying to protect yourself first?
It's very hard to know what bullets are doing, and so you kind of have to just make decisions about what you need to do, whether as a soldier shooting back or as a cameraman, what you need to shoot. Like it's very, I mean, bullets can be going right past your face, you don't know it. So it's
at daytime, At night you see a little bit of a what do you call it? A tracer?
Yeah, but at daytime, once in a while you see a tracer, but mostly they're invisible, and you hear snap, snap, snap. You don't know where it is. You just have to sort of do your job and sort of ignore it.
And hope for the best. Yeah.
Sometimes in the ground you can see bullet impacts, but you know, like that's, I don't know.
Was there a moment you actually got afraid for your life?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. The situation that was like, you know, you get raining on you and you just don't know how to.
Yeah, there was a couple of surprise attacks where there was a lot of, I could hear bullets hitting all around me. I got, dirt kicked in my face from a bullet that hit right by my head. So I mean, you can sense when there's a lot of rounds coming in. Yeah.
So the bonding between men in war, do you feel like we can only find that spirit, the human spirit between men bonding only in the wartime?
I mean, I think the consequences have to be life and death. The easiest place to find life and death consequences is in war. It doesn't only happen there, but it's the easiest, most obvious place to find that.
So did you build strong relationship during those 12 months of hauling?
Yeah, very much.
And you probably saw people losing their life?
Tim and I would alternate
Okay.
trips. So he was there during an operation called Rock Avalanche,
That's right. Yeah.
and several American soldiers were killed. And then after Rock Avalanche, thank God, no one else in the platoon was killed. So after that, guys got hurt, but they were all right.
That's all right. So what's it like to not knowing the next morning you could be gone?
Well, it makes you pay attention to details. It makes you think about what life is and what it isn't.
What have you learned? I mean, the big lessons during this 1 year rotation.
I think the biggest lesson was that, I was trying to understand how courage works. Like, why would someone risk their life or sacrifice their life for other people? It's a universal human quality and a very noble one, and one that you really don't find in the animal world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, mothers will defend their young, and males will defend their mates or their young. But to have a male sacrifice his life for a same-sex peer, that's uniquely human. Does not happen anywhere in the animal world. And that was my definition of what courage is. And I wanted to know how it worked. And essentially it's a function of love. So if you care more about someone else than you do about yourself, you'll protect them with your life. And that's true of parents with children, obviously, but it's also true of same-sex peers in certain situations where men are very tightly bonded, like in war.
Mm-hmm. Tim lost his life since you've done this project. Where were you when you learned about it?
When Tim was killed in Libya, I was in New York City.
Okay.
I was supposed to go with him on assignment to Libya, and at the last moment I couldn't. And I got the news on the internet.
On the internet, so not even directly to a friend?
He was the first close friend that I ever lost.
Okay.
In combat or otherwise. And yes, it shook me very much, and it actually made me decide not to do any more war reporting. I
Really?
almost immediately decided that I wasn't going to do that anymore.
So you did a documentary on Tim. It came out back in April, I think, on HBO.
Yeah.
And what was it like, the process to go through all those tapes and putting that film together for you?
Well, I feel like I got to know him a lot better by going through all that material.
Okay. At what level?
Well, I just got to see him, at work in Sri Lanka. He was part of a documentary in Sri Lanka. I got to see all of the interviews he did for Restrepo. He and I did a lot of media after Restrepo came out, and I got to, I really got to watch and pay attention to what he was saying about his life, about his work.
Mm-hmm.
I just got to sort of know him more fully. It was a little poignant,
Yeah,
but
sure.
it was also good.
So next you're working on a new project, a secret project. Is it military-based as well, or is it war-based, or is that nothing to do with it?
Nothing to do with war.
Nothing to do with it?
I mean, it's distantly connected to the after effects of war, but it's not,
Okay.
not about combat.
What's interesting about the change of technology in the publishing industry is that it has created tremendous opportunities. The technology itself and the special website have made possible virtually for anyone to publish a book. That is, if you have written a book. It has created also tremendous fairy tale, something we've never seen before, where a newbie comes on the block and sells millions of copies, such as Hugh Howey and his War series, and Ellie James, and everyone knows about the 50 Shades of Greys. So you have to ask yourself, why would you create a new publishing companies in that climate? Well, we found one, the new kid on the block, who started just about a year ago with a handful of writers and has grown so much that today it has more than 350 writers on the stables. And they're going to find out how they did it and why they did it. My guest is Hutch Morton from
Premier Digital Publishing.
And what is that?
We're a full-service publisher.
Okay.
Started out as a digital-first publisher in that we were bringing a lot of backlist as well as some front list, but straight to digital.
Okay.
And kind of leveraging our background in digital media.
This is what you were doing before, you mean?
We had been in digital media,
Okay.
my partner and I, Tom Ellsworth, for over 10 years.
Okay, and I was publishing...
Initially publishing games for cell phones,
Okay.
and moving on to big, rich multimedia apps.
So from there, you stepped into publishing. Why?
it's a funny story. We had a relationship with an agent, Joel Gottler, in Los Angeles, and he reached out to us one day while we were still at our former company. And he said, "You guys are digital people. Amazon keeps calling me. Can you call them up and figure out what they want from me?" So we said, "Give us a week." We incorporated our company and came back and gave them a business card and said, "We're digital publishers now, let's go make something happen."
So you inherited a big portfolio of authors, it sounds like.
It started with 2 authors. His 2 primary authors that were available to us at that moment were Piers Anthony and Alan Jacobson.
So what's the progression for the next 2 years?
Despite our name with digital in it, this fall will be our first season of selling print books. So we have a relationship with Ingram and the IPS group there. So that sales team will be representing 9 new titles and selling those into national and local bookstores. With Ingram, because they have the print-on-demand capabilities, a lot of booksellers don't often over-order for the sake of filling shelves, because they know that if they run out of books, Ingram gets them new books very quickly.
Given there's only Barnes & Noble left, and Walmart, maybe to move with big volumes, writer, there are new bookstores opening. In Brooklyn, even Manhattan, smaller, they're returning because now the big sharks have nothing left to eat now. So the small fry can come back to life.
There's still something magical about bookstores for authors, for giving authors opportunities to come in and do readings. And again, that's sort of not our forte, but we have authors who are aggressive in self-marketing, and where we can open doors for them, we absolutely do, in terms of book signings and readings and that kind of thing.
So if you want to be like premier digital publishing, you can see that opportunities abound in this world, especially with the technology. And if you feel like it, you can create your own company as well. The opportunities are there for you to grab. Since we are on the topic of courageous people, and I've been talking a lot about courage, let me introduce to you some courageous book this week, Picks of the Week. The first one, it's by Jerry DeWitt, Hope After Faith. Quite a very interesting book about an ex-pastor journey from belief to atheism. It's a journey of a Pentecostal preacher in Louisiana who loses his faith and become an atheist, and through that he loses absolutely everything: his job, his wife, and pretty much his place in community. So the story of loss and redemption. Jerry DeWitt describes very well what his journey has been, and it's a great read. So Hope After Faith, an ex-pastor journey from belief to atheism by Jerry DeWitt. The next book is The Boys in the Boat by Daniel James Brown. 9 Americans and their epic quest from gold at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. That says pretty much all. It's a great story, I mean, especially if you know the history of Adolf Hitler and his 1936 Olympics, and the film by Leni Riefenstahl that document that, called the Olympia. Adolf Hitler was not too happy when the black man Jesse Owens won the gold medal. And this Boys in the Boat, it's the other gold medal that the American won, describes the story of Joe Rance and his crew and how they managed to, through courage and determination, and prove themselves and endurance to win the gold medal. The Boys in the Boat. The next book, it's another gutsy book, How to Fake a Moon Landing, and it's exposing the myth of science denial. Cover looks a bit deceiving because it's written as a graphic novel, as you can see, but the book actually questions has a moon landing really happened, and what it's up with the evolution these days. Highly entertaining and actually quite funny, but it's also very serious. How to Fake a Moon Landing by Darrell Cunningham, exposing the myths of science denial. And the last book is Jim Marrs, Our Occulted History. Jim Marrs, you may or not know, is a specialist in conspiracy theory, and in his book, he has a new conspiracy theory. Do the global elite conceal ancient aliens? And he talks about the Atlantis, about the markets, how it's being manipulated by the rich elites, and how maybe the Iraq war was not completely motivated by oil interests, but perhaps by stealing artifacts from the past that will reveal important information about the current situation of the elite. So, Jim Marrs, quite a gutsy book to write. Our Occulted History, another read. If you don't know this, you can also use this to write something. I mean, this is what it was made for. So unless you can try to use it on a wire to balance this, I think it would be a bit short. You know, it's, what else could it be? You could get two of them, it'd be perfect chopsticks. You know, you have to be very creative in life. You know, you eat, and you can even maybe just do this and work on a wire.